What's up, guys? This is the second episode we're dropping this week. This is a bonus episode. I have no idea what's going on. John, can you fill us in?
We don't know what day it is.
We don't know what day it is.
It's going to be Modern Craftsman Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday.
Whatever day it is, this is a bonus, and I have no idea what's going on. John, fill us in.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
we got a DM. And I cold called him during the day, and it was a great conversation about he wanted to abandon a project, and I didn't want to respond. DM jumped on a call, and I just thought it needed to be a topic that was discussed with all of us. So he jumped on the end of this podcast, and it was not a 10-minute thing like I texted the boys, and it is a great conversation. So talks about punch list, talks about process, how you control a client, how you lose control of it. And
expectations,
what to do. Yeah. What to do if you fall short, and how do you confront it with the client?
Let's get into it.
Bonus Frank.
As always, guys, this podcast is brought to you by Duration Moulding and Millwork. Considering a painted wood siding on your next project because you love that look? So do we. Let us show you why architects, builders, and homeowners are switching to Duration for the same great look, but with a much faster installation and a far superior performance. To learn more about Duration Polyash products, please visit their website at durationmillwork.com. And speaking of sponsors, I just want to mention we welcome all of these, and you guys have reached out. You've had some comments on it, but let us take a second to explain why we're doing this. We've created a nonprofit, the Modern Craftsman nonprofit, and we welcome these sponsors because this is what is going to allow us to give back to the industry more than just this weekly or bi-weekly audio format conversation. We want to make a bigger impact, and the only way we're going to be able to do that is either we quit our jobs, which probably we can't do, or we get some support by some of the industry-leading vendors and manufacturers out there, and that's why we've chosen to take the latter route, at least for now. I kind of like my job.
Yeah, and I think it's huge. We went no sponsors for 2+ years,
mm-hmm.
And we were very disciplined, selective on who we brought in, yeah. And it's I think it's a good thing, and we have big news coming hopefully end of the year on what we're going to do with these funds and how we're going to give back beyond this podcast. So stay tuned. Show not only us some love, but also the sponsors that come on. Give them a listen, give them a shout out here and there, and we appreciate them as much as we appreciate you guys.
Let's get into it.
Nick just texted me what's going on.
I'm lost.
No, so I talked to you earlier today.
Yeah.
So I figured it was a great conversation we had earlier. And could you fill Nick in on what the scenario is?
All right. So basically, I felt extremely frustrated and trapped on a project that we're doing, and I reached out to a couple of my friends. We're on the back end of about a 7-month project, and I just, on a whim, I messaged Tyler and I messaged John, and I just asked them if they've ever abandoned a job before, and they reached back out and they explained to me, their feedback. And so this project, it's been a 7-month project through COVID. We started in March. It was a kitchen remodel, took out a beam, opened up the kitchen, and they decided to add on week after week change orders, shiplap in the living room, faux beams, fireplace, faux finish, and just every week after week. So that pushed back the scheduling. It pushed back other projects that I had, and I basically put everything on hold to make their life, make their project as best as they could. And I reached out to you guys in particular because I kind of blame it on you guys.
This is the best part.
You're breaking up.
I blame it on you guys because I first of all, you guys have been a huge inspiration. I told John I left a pretty thorough review. You guys really brought back a lot of the of the pride in me personally, I feel like I have a little bit of my story in all of you guys. And, when I started listening to you, you guys would often say that you would build up your projects to do your portfolio. And I figured this would be the perfect job. We're at a level where I felt like we can level up, and we started to add to the project, free upgrades, basically, inset panel doors. We did the Humphrey Munson toe kicks. I bought the Lamello, the Zeta, just all these things that just completely, we went from like this to this in one project, and I did it all for free. So I think I just overeducated the client throughout the process. And now that we're on the tail end of things, they just expect that level for, they're expecting A level quality for a C budget. And now they just don't want to let go. That's where I'm at right now.
So how far along are you in the project?
We're at the punch list phase, So I would say if we hustle, it's a good 2 weeks, but it's every day that we show up, they completely litter the whole place with whatever we did that day with blue tape. They sent us, I would say, about 40 to 50 line item punch list, which is okay. And then I put it in a spreadsheet. I added a column where they can, check off the things that we did that week. I highlighted in yellow what we did today. I highlighted in green what we're going to do tomorrow. And after day one, which was Monday night, I got a 5-page paragraph on what they consider a punch list to be to begin with. Like, they completely ignored the spreadsheet, and they're like, well, the punch list is this and that and the other. I'm just like, they just don't seem like they want to finish the project.
Do you have a formal punch list process? Like written, like did they know going into it?
No, no, they don't.
That's fair. How's the contract structured with this job?
It's our standard contract. I mean, it's pretty lengthy. It basically, it states that it's this was in fits. So in 5 draws, and the last draw minus 10% of the balance owed upon completion, determined by us on what we determine the project to be complete.
Has that been paid?
No, that's where we are right now. They owe us $13,000, and
the last 10%.
No. That's the last draw minus 10%. So I guess they owe us 10,000 minus 3-ish.
Okay.
And they don't want to deem it complete until there's obviously some things that we need to do, and that's fair. And
final payment upon substantial completion. So it is substantial completion. I'm just trying to get all of the information because I have been in this position before. Is it defined in your contract, like what substantial completion is?
It just says when we deem it complete. When
the contractor deems it complete.
Yes.
So by contract, you're deeming it complete. What are the major items on the punch list? Like, can they use the entire space?
They're using it already. They've lived in it, and now.
What do you think let's ignore like paint touch-ups. What would be the most aggravating thing that they're dealing with that isn't considered complete in their space right now?
I think it is the paint touch-ups. We use.
So there's not like an appliance that doesn't work. I don't mean to keep cutting you off.
No,
I'm just
okay.
But there's not like an appliance that doesn't work, or like baseboard that's missing, or like a hole that has to be patched because one of the sconces had to be moved, or anything like that.
No. I mean, we kind of sped through the hardware process, and there's a little bit of tear out inside the drawers, and they want like 5 drawers remade because there's 1/8-inch tear out in the screws. And again, I've seen your guys' work, and I would say this is acceptable. And you go. My son's in the room. He's like, I gotta be in the room with you.
How's it going, guys? I love you guys.
Thanks, man.
He's a good story, a side story, but this isn't $1 million job. This is a $200,000 job.
Sure.
This is a $200,000 house.
I said I hope so. Is your kid? When you're like, it's a good story.
Yeah. It's a $200,000 house that they splurged on, and it's a $70,000 project,
Completely understood. I talked about this yesterday, about like setting expectations, and obviously looking at now, like what we're talking about now is that we're at the end of the job, so the expectations, and no fault, like it's not I'm not blaming you, but like the expectations weren't set. And again, I've been there. I continue to put myself there, and it's like you go into this like, all right, I'm going to splurge on top of their splurge to make this place awesome, so then I can photograph it and use it to promote it to the next guy that wants to spend $400,000 on a kitchen. But so paint touch-ups and 5 drawers need to be remade is what's on their list. So if you were to do that, would they be happy? Do you think they would be happy?
So if I just shared a picture of what their paint touch-ups are, I mean, it looks like Swiss cheese. It's just everywhere, and is
it cabinetry touch-ups?
Yeah, it's cabinet touch-ups.
Did you guys spray the cabinets, or were they pre-finished?
No, we sprayed them. I actually bought the Titan 440 multi-finish because of you. I bought it, and we're using the air-assisted airless.
We are literally to blame for this.
When I was on the phone, 100% this is us.
LaMelo Zeta, the Titan.
LaMelo, the Humphrey Munson, the toe kicks, the white oak upgrade, just my portfolio. And
what's funny is when I spoke to you, the level of resentment that you had towards the client isn't being heard in this conversation. Where you would like, and I'm not saying that against you. We had a great conversation, and I really wanted you to talk to Tyler, because I think Tyler's a different universe, and it's really this is a perfect project that dials into him.
Yeah.
So, but I was hearing that resentment, and I was like, that was making you not handle the next step quite as clean as you would have if it was a clean, hey, they loved everything. You'd kind of handle the next step. And the other part of the conversation I got, I don't know, Tyler, if you did, is that you were letting them dictate the next step, and you were just reacting to it. And you have to get in front of it and not use those gimmies. And Nick, he did everything. He even did the upgrades, and he put 0 values to them, but showed them.
Right.
So I did that too.
So he documented everything and was like, this is a freebie. This is a freebie. So they 100% are aware of what they're getting as they couldn't get this.
At what point did the issues begin to arise?
So it arose about 2 months ago when we were there. We were putting up the pendants over the island, and he came in and he said, I told you from the beginning, if there was one thing that I had was going to have an issue with, was the paint. I said, Rick, in all honesty, you've had an issue with everything, from day one. And he's like, oh, okay, yeah. But he's like, the paint drips. And I said, I understand. And one issue, I think I used the wrong product. The pre-cap, it just dries way too quick. And we were just doing a whole bunch of ship lap. So it was just drying too quick. So I couldn't overlap. I was going up, down. And I told him, I will, do some of this paint touch-ups, but to some extent, I undercharged you for what you're expecting. And, there's going to have to be some give and take. And he just got really upset. He's like, well, if you don't do this, then, I'm never going to, ask you to work back. And there was just this hostility, and it turned from there. And that's where we sat down. Well, we had already sat down. The scheduling was an issue. They just brought up to me, from one day to the next, I have a birthday party 3 weeks from now. I'm like, well, this is a surprise, and they were holding that against me. They didn't end up having the party. And then it's just change order after change order after change order, and freebies and things that they just think it's just gonna, again, I feel like I just spoiled them. I over-spoiled them.
Sure.
And now they're holding me against.
So these are the things that stick out in my mind. And I was going to relate it to another project, but I'll refrain from doing that. So the conversation that you had when you mentioned that you let him know that you were undercharging him, The problem with that, in my opinion, is that he didn't ask you to make those free upgrades.
Right.
So you're in a way you're using it against him. You're like, hey, I gave you all this stuff for free. He's like, I didn't ask for that. I told you that I wanted the paint to be really good. So instead of the $10,000 worth of upgrades that you gave me, I would have rather you spend $10,000 on labor to make the paint absolutely immaculate. And, you know, paint's tricky because, and this is, I will relate it, this is one that we're dealing with right now, is the level of expectation that the paint quality has to be. And we nailed it. In my opinion, A++, best paint job I've ever seen, I've ever had done.
And that's not biased. That's a professional.
Right. And it's like, and it didn't hit their mark. And it's like, okay. And you know what? I understood that, you know, it sucks because like your immediate reaction is to defend it, right? Like I want to be like, hey, listen, like, no, this is the best paint job I've ever seen. Frankly, they're like, listen, I don't give a shit if it's the best paint job you've ever seen. It's not up to what I'm asking for, regardless of the situation. So, you know, I do have to remove the fact that like you made those upgrades because it is tough. Because again, like we've all been there, we've all done the free upgrades for our portfolio. But the fact of the matter is like they hired you, and it sounds like maybe some of those expectations with paint were early on, or maybe at least throughout the process. And that has to be considered in the fact of where you're at. And it's like you started the conversation about abandoning the project. I don't think that's the move here. You're too far. You're too close. Right. And what needs to happen is that you guys need to just you have to have a real like, listen, I just want to have a quick sit down. I feel like this project went, we got off to a good start, and you guys are losing trust in me. Like get on their side. Think about how they're feeling. I feel like you guys are starting to lose trust in me, and I want this project to close on a really good note. Like we've put a ton of work into this, and I want this to be a positive experience. And I want to sit down and have a chat. I just want to I know we've already developed the punch list, but I'd love to go through one last time, develop a punch list, give me the opportunity to make it right, because that's what you guys hired me for, and that's it. And sit down and have that conversation and walk through. Don't be defensive when he says like, "Hey, I don't like the I don't like the orange peel on the panel of this door." Just note it. Mm-hmm. Like being defensive, you're burning hours. Where it's like, understand what their level of expectation is. Go through the whole house, because if you let them do the talking and you're not pointing like, I know, but look at that one, it looks just like the one in your living room. It's like, let them talk. Don't feed them a reason to pick something out. Don't point out something, compare it, don't defend it, just listen and slow down. Listen to them all the way through. And I bet that punch list will be a lot shorter than it started, because they're there trying to put that together, rather than you guys going back and forth and getting into this combativeness. Well,
I also think one of the items I talked about earlier was everyone's a tough guy in email. Mm-hmm. Everybody. So we talked about this on the podcast before, where like if you do a change order or you just send it as an email, there's that personability in kind of, face to face is gone. So people can then confront that with a quick email. Like we talked about earlier, is that, you guys may have exchanged that punch list, but then you volleyed it back to them and said, hey, is this complete? And right. It's like, well, you opened yourself up. What I talked about was like, hey, walking through that punch list that was made with them. Same thing Nick's saying. And then you're not then going, that's what you're going to go with, is then doing a follow-up recap of that email, that situation, that walkthrough you went through, and going, hey, we've all agreed this is what we went through, blah, blah. I think it was a great move documenting the freebies. That way they know their value, but it also documenting this whole process the best way through. Not going, hey, here's the email. What I find a lot of in the conversation we had was, I've done all this, so I deserve this. Mm-hmm. We don't deserve anything in a lot of this. It's just what we think is, like to Nick's point, the expectation. What we think has been enough to educate them really isn't. And they're still reaching for this gray area. So like having that punch and saying it's 40 items and you've kind of qualified that as it's only 40. Like it could be 100. Like they think 40 is a lot, you know, and it's just how you perceive it. And then having that walkthrough, making sure you guys agree on what this is. And to what Nick was getting at is, you know, what is the process that you want to dictate? Because right now you're volleying it out there for them to then volley it back instead of them following along in a process.
Right. And you walk through that list, you come to an agreement, you say, all right, I understand your list. Give me I need 7 days to complete this work and this will be it. But we need to understand that this, we're not going to, I don't want this to continue going on. And it sounds like are they continuing to add work, like additional scope?
Yeah. They added it this week.
So you got to put a pause on that. Say, listen, we've derailed on this initial project. I want to complete this additional work for you. I genuinely do. I want to make it work, but I feel like we've become misaligned. And before we start moving forward and going down the wrong path, we need to realign here. And to realign, go ahead.
Yeah, but it's things that they have. When they added the shiplap, it's because it was right next to the open wall that I was doing. So it's difficult to not say, okay, let's pause.
I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it. But if you're going down the wrong path here, which it sounds like it is because you haven't been paid for something that you should have been, and you guys haven't agreed to what is considered punch list, but you're also utilizing the quality. I don't want to say quality because I'm not saying the quality is poor, but the level of expectation versus what was a freebie, you're using that against each other. So
and then they're leveraging you for the final payment to get everything and turning into a wish list. One of the examples you gave me earlier was you walked in today and they then were like, let's move that plug or that switch. Right. And it's like,
they want to replace the whole back to the cabinet. And how do I just tell them, well, that's, and they're already working on it.
But you got to control it. Like you got to pump the brakes and go, I can definitely move that, but we have to get this done because we have to close out this project. And then that could be an ad. My only question, Tyler, before you get to it is, when you did the upgrades, how did you handle those upgrades? Well, I didn't talk about this when we were together. Yeah. Did you do it like it was piecemeal, or like, are you waiting for, like I find in the past that I would do upgrades and blah, blah, and I get, my payment for that, but then that would be lumped into my final payment. It would push off my final payment from my overall project. I would do the shiplap, I'd do all this, but that slowed me down from getting the overall kitchen done.
Yeah. So, I mean, and some of the upgrades, it's like that, the baseboard toe kick that we added on. I mean, those were, I didn't realize it, but those are 300. It was two 16-foot lengths of white oak that had to get milled. That was $150 a piece. So I spent $300 on 2 lengths of baseboard. I just bought it and put it on after showing them Humphrey Munson photo. And they said, yeah, I love it. So I just did it. The inset panel doors on the end panels of the refrigerator and the island, we used to just rip, 1/8 strips of poplar and glue it on. But I know that might fail in the future. And so instead we just, pocket hold some face frames and added an inset door. So they don't know any better. And that's what they feel like is my standard. And they're holding me to that standard.
So my opinion on the freebies, I think that if they were to kind of nag you on stuff that you did for free, I think that it's a little bit different than them nagging you on level of execution of stuff that was in the initial contract. You can't really say, hey, the paint's not that great, but we did this. So for me, what I look at punch list is I want that job to be 110%. And if there's punch list, it's something that was completely unforeseen to me. From a morality standpoint, I'm not looking to get away with something on punch list. So if it's something that you're like, you know what, that should be fixed, or that was in the original scope, it should be done like this, I think that should be done, no questions asked. I think, if there were issues with your upgrades that they didn't like the way this came together, or that came together, like I think that you are responsible to make it make it look right, because would you rather an upgrade that looked like crap or the original contract? But I think that, you can't say that your original scope of work can be of a lower quality now that you upgraded things, unless you had that conversation where it's like, hey, we're going to cut the paint budget so that we can add more to the cabinetry. But if you miss the mark on paint, I think, if you're leaving that job and you know that there's issues with the paint, that's the customer should rightfully so be upset about that. And that you can't look to get away with something and hope maybe they don't catch it on punch. And I think that sadly there's a lot of lessons to be learned here. And even on the podcast, one of the things that somebody said was wait till the end to be charitable, where if you want to be giving away something for free or you want to upgrade something, wait until the end of the job, because to give all that away up front and then you get to the end of the job and you start resenting the customer because you bent over backwards for them and now they're hounding you about things that you feel, they should give you a little bit more leeway, you'd be better off right now having not done any of that stuff from a financial perspective with your relationship with the customer. If you want to do it for their portfolio, for your portfolio, and you want to be charitable, you gotta knock it out of the park, and do that stuff so you can photograph it and everything well, but you can't hold that personally against the customer.
But is it Frank, or is that just your Zoom? Okay. But we're Frank, like, to be fair, we're also, Tyler, we don't know if the level of paint quality is poor, right? Like, we don't know that. So, and you had said, like, hey, I can show you a picture of what they're complaining about, and it would fall. That's why it has to be that conversation in person and walk through it. Because if and I can't be the judge of it either. Right. If you look at it, I guess the question, and this is what, how I try to pose it with my guys, is like, Frank, if you look at what he's taping off, forget who he is, forget how much of a pain in the ass he's been, forget how much money you've spent or the time you've spent. Do you look at that and say, man, I wish I could fix it, or I wish I could respray because it would be, I know I could do a better job? Or do you look at it and say, no, that's literally the best paint job I can produce
for that budget?
No. Well, no.
I feel like you have to consider that. No, you have to consider that, because, like, if he's charging $70,000,
no, because the budget's skewed. The budget is skewed because of the freebies.
It is, but at the same time, if it's a $70,000 kitchen project with, like, you're not going to get the highest level paint job in the world. So, like, you also have to look at that budget range of that initial job. If it's a $200,000 job and you have money on there for a perfect paint job, then yes. But, like, how many houses? I'm in a house right now that's $2 million and the paint job is atrocious. But, like,
okay, but let's just start with my question.
So
fine.
So I think that, yes, I know I could have done a better job.
Okay.
But at the same time, they backed me up into a corner in several instances with time frames. And
I know, but hold on, Frank. Forget all of that. Forget the client. Forget how much of paint. Forget everything else. Just look at what we're like. Yeah. Do you look at that and say, I wish I could do that over?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So let's dig into that. Is it the whole kitchen?
No, not at all. And that's if it was like an oil based paint where I can, add a little bit of paint thinner and brush it on. Yeah, I know that it's going to probably be an entire kitchen repainting job. And that's
so for you personally to look at that kitchen and be like, damn, that's my best paint job ever. Like, for you personally, what would it take to do that?
I would have to repaint the whole kitchen.
And how much time is that? Is it brush finish? You're saying?
It's all spray paint. It's all. If it was oiled, I can probably touch it up.
So did you paint it in place?
Yeah. The doors we paint off site, but we caulked everything and we painted everything in place. Yeah.
So are the doors the issue, or is it everything that's in place?
It's just some scuff marks and just things that happen that we've been working there for. We did the kitchen and then things were added, and they wanted wood and the tray ceilings, and then.
But Frank, I listen. I get it, and we in totally get it. And I'm so right now, like I pulled this up just so I could make sure I wasn't misspeaking. But last
Being very
Thursday,
right now, Frank.
we went
Don't
into
take
a
offense.
kitchen that
Don't
we
take
built,
offense to it.
and we never took the appliances
No, he's
back
being
to our
very
shop
aggressive
to
with
double
his
check the measurement, and we built the cabinet 3/4 of an inch too big.
I saw that.
And this is a really hard, like, this is hard, right? And everyone says, well, I can't afford that, and I respect that, and we can dig into that. But it's like I too was with the client, and I got combative and defensive, but I tried to do it in a way that, listen, I don't understand. Like, I'm not sure why it was built that way. I wasn't the one that built it. I'm going to find out why, and if there's a good reason, then it might have to stay that way. I agree with you. It doesn't look right, so let me get to the bottom of it. Unfortunately, tempers rose, and it wasn't a good situation. But I had to go home, and the next morning, I called my team, and I said, I'm like, listen, guys. I thought about this last night, and it's really hard to do this, but I had to remove the client from the situation, because, like, despite the client being aggravated or mad or, like, maybe yelling or whatever the case may be, I had to remove the client from the situation and make the decision based on who we are and what we stand for. And we were hired to build a bespoke kitchen. It's designed to, like, we're supposed to take all of that stuff and make it look like it was, like, absolutely incredibly well thought out and put together. So for that, we have to we're pulling the cabinet out, and we have to redo it. So
Yeah, but you guys have also said, you know, the home comes before the homeowner, right? And one question that I don't know that you guys have ever answered is there a difference between, you know, a $40,000 kitchen and a
100%.
kitchen?
And this is what Tyler was getting to, and the unfortunate part is going back to me.
No. I don't know the answer to it.
I have a question, probably a better question. In your estimate, how much what was your line item when you charged them to paint the kitchen? How much was that for?
Well, the total kitchen job with the beam and everything was $40,000.
So how much off the top of your head do you think you're charging to paint their kitchen?
Probably like $3,000, $4,000.
All right, so Nick, it's a $3,000 to $4,000 cabinet paint job. You can't if you didn't articulate to your customers what the difference is between a $3,000 to $4,000 in place like that should cover masking and protection and maybe materials, not the labor to finish doors, all that stuff. But if you didn't articulate to your customers, or you shorted yourself labor, that's somewhat on you, because if you're only charging somebody, like, I can't get a kitchen repainted for that much, a repaint for that much, and a repaint's not going to be like a factory finish. That's an inexpensive repaint. We don't know what your market's like necessarily, but your customers, you need to do a better job of selling whatever you're executing. Right now, what I believe happened, I think that you oversold the job, and some things you delivered super high quality. You gave them a ton of upgrades. I think that you probably sold them on a paint finish that they kind of thought was going to be something else. And I think that where you didn't hit their mark, although you're probably right in the ballpark of where you should be from a cost standpoint, they're upset about it. So I think that really the bigger issue is not your customers being jerks, or you giving away things for free, or you're doing extras, or that the job, there was add-ons, this, that, and the other thing. I just think, you know, listening to what we do and what we sell and what Nick's saying, your price point for these kitchens, it doesn't justify being able to do all of that stuff. So you're killing yourself from the get-go. And even the paint finish and the upgrades and all of that stuff, there's not enough meat in those jobs for you to be doing that stuff. So maybe you offer one thing, or you do one upgrade on a kitchen so you can photograph it. But for you to basically bend over and take this with everything on this entire job, I think that you probably oversold a higher quality than you were getting paid for. And at the end of the day, you got to get the hell out of there and you're trying to get yourself out of there and maybe not doing things as well as you could because you're kind of in a corner right now. But I think that that's probably the bigger issue, the level of expectation, the communication, and what you're actually selling for that price is unclear.
Hey, Frank, sorry, Nick, real quick. When you walked into this project before you started it, did you have it budgeted a certain way? Did you know how much, if you were going to upgrade that island to white oak, did you know how much of the margin you were eating into at that point? Or were you stealing from Peter to pay Paul on your own budget? You get me? Like, you did the oak upgrade and it was like, that could have taken away time and effort away from the actual paint job. I'm just trying to figure out how did you go into a blind and was like, this would look cool, and I'll do the oak. And then once because otherwise you could have maybe made that money back on the other $20,000 in upgrades that they did. If the budget started at 50 and you're making margin on the shiplap, making margin on XYZ, then it gives you the ability to still do that upgrade and perfect the paint. Because I feel like that's where Nick's going to end up going next, is like, the real answer here is, in my eyes as well, is that if you wanted to do all this and post that picture, because your IG is pretty solid, and post that picture and be able to say, hey, I bought this sprayer, I did this, I did that, and to be able to post it, and a lot of people do this, we all know who they are, post it and go, this is unbelievable, and know that client is going, what the fuck?
Yeah.
What gives them the right to do this, even though I am totally unhappy?
Right.
And that's where we draw the line, is that you can't, like, when you post something, it has to be honest between yourself and the client and what you're representing.
Yeah.
And that's where you get stuck, is that's what, like Nick was saying, is that when you look at everything else, we talked about this on the phone, is that throw all that other stuff out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Is this what you wanted? Is this what your goal was when you started? When you start upgrading everything, is this where you want to be? Because we always talk about, quality, but more importantly is that client expectation and relationship, because that's what's going to speak volumes going forward.
And that's what screws us up. And that's why you're in the position you are in. That's why I've been in the position that I've been in, Tyler, John, like, that's why we're all been in these positions. And most will just kind of fess up and walk away from a project. I always say giving up and quitting, that's the easiest thing to do. Yeah. I do agree, Tyler, like, he didn't sell that particular paint job, but to go back to expectation and communication, it's like, you got to have that real talk. Like, you have to sit down with the client and say, listen, this is where I'm at. This is, I came in, we were selling the cabinets at this price point. I had budgeted this much time. If the paint isn't up to snuff in the sense that you couldn't spend enough time prepping it because you didn't have enough time, that's one thing. If it was like light spots, like the primer showing through because it wasn't sprayed accurately, well, then the client was paying for some learning curve there. So you have to absorb that because you're learning a new machine, whatever the case is. It's this give and take where it's like, it's level of execution, but it's also level of knowledge and product knowledge and tool knowledge and completing the project. Like, did you just not sand? Did you forget to sand filler and you painted over it? Like, that wouldn't slide, right? Like it, right. And I don't think that's what we're getting at. I think we're talking about really minute things, but have that real conversation and just, be open and transparent. It doesn't have to be feel sorry for me. It's just, this is where I was coming in at. I forget the upgrades in this conversation. Just talk about, like, hey, I want to get on the same page. I did. I'm speaking for you. Like, I did a poor job communicating expectations and setting the level of expectation early on. I was under the impression that we were going to be in this price point for cabinetry. That's what I was trending towards. I should have been more clear with that. I'm obviously not hitting the expectation that you guys were hoping for. So I'd like to get on the same page. What can we do from here? And like I said, kind of just shut up for a second and let them talk and walk through, like, oftentimes that conversation is going to be like, I really appreciate that. Honestly, yeah, I went a little overboard with the blue tape, but these are the 4 areas that really drive me crazy. You know what? Let me take those drawers back to my shop. I'll clean those up, or hey, I know how I can fix that. I can put a little filler in that, and I'll respray those 2 doors, because you're right. In the morning, the sun comes in and all you see is that run dripping down the side of it. And just let them kind of feed you that, but come into it, being humble enough to admit that you were wrong in the way that you set the expectations from the beginning, and that you are willing to listen to them and understand what it's going to take to get them to trust you again, to be excited about the project and end up in a good position.
Close it the way you started it.
Right.
And so, Nick, to everybody here, the next step after that conversation, and let's say it turns into repainting the entire face frame of that kitchen. And let's say, we've talked about this before, we don't have the money in the budget to do that. And ideally he needs to move on, get another project started, finish that project, make some money. Is there a conversation that says, hey, I get this. This is livable right now. And next time you guys go away, we'll come in here and tape this off, but I need to make a dime somewhere else. Do you admit that? How does that roll?
Yeah. I mean, that's
worst case scenario.
That's what we did with the kitchen that we ripped out last year.
Yeah.
So it was a very real conversation. And it was the same thing. We couldn't afford to do it at that time.
But so I'm talking out loud right now how did you close out the original contract for that? Like, it was a conversation. It was just a conversation like this. Hey, listen, like let's get this place. We weren't as close as you are. It sounds like you guys were livable. We agreed to make it as the kitchen livable. We were going to finish it. We were going to come in and adjust everything. They were going to live with it without a backsplash, so we didn't have to rip out a backsplash later on. So we just had a very real conversation and very like just an intimate like understanding of each other's needs and how we wanted to make it right. And the hard part here is the $13,000 that's left here. And, I think that conversation needs to happen first and see if it's something that can you work into your workload right now. Can you go in there and spend 2 days yourself and try to comb through those things, get it to a position. But I think in that meeting, you go through that list, you create that list, you agree on a time frame that makes sense for the both of you guys, and then just explain like, listen, I'm going to get this done, but I do need to be paid less than 10%. Like that's where my contract is. It's important for me to keep this going, but it's also important for me to be able to afford to stay here and finish this off. I don't want to have to leave and go to another project and put this on the back burner. That's just going to hurt our relationship. So can we just please get to where we're at? We're substantially complete. We're owed the $10,000. And we've agreed that here are the 20 items that I'm going to address, and here's the date that they're going to be completed by.
Yeah, I think that's definitely possible. They have told me that they have a hard date, and that's another thing that's like kind of choking us up. They have a November 21st baby shower, and they want everything complete by them. No excuses, according to them this morning. And that's.
Is it just the punch list, or is it additional stuff?
No. Just it's the punch list items.
Could you get the punch list items done in 19 days?
Yeah,
18 days?
Absolutely. I'm just afraid that they're never going to be happy. It's right now. It's gotten to the point. It was never a matter of us not being able to.
Sure.
I think within the last 2-3 days, it's just been. We were there until 8:00 at night painting their laundry. They didn't even let it paint dry, and they were already blue taping it. And then we got an email on Saturday on Halloween. We got an email on Sunday, and then we got a reiterated email on Monday morning. And we attacked the punch list Monday, and then we got that response back. I mean,
today?
Yesterday afternoon.
Yeah.
And we didn't show up today because I wanted to make sure that we're not just treading water. And
you got to have the conversation. Tell them enough with the blue tape. Mm-hmm. Like we don't need to do the blue tape thing. Let's walk through this together. in person. Let's create a list. We'll agree to the list. We'll agree to the time frame. You guys have to trust the process. And you know, it's always tough when they're using the space that you're working on, because it's something that they're watching it come together. It's like when a client sees tile ungrouted and thinks it looks like shit.
Yeah.
And then it's like all of a sudden it gets grouted and it hides all of the messiness that what it looked like before.
Yeah.
It has to start with that conversation, you know, a quick meeting. Guys, we need to agree on this. We'll agree on what we will take care of. We'll agree on the tape frame. Yeah, and you have to trust the process. And please don't blue tape things, because we're putting this together, and it has we have to. This is the process it has to be in order for this to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And we're gonna be back. I'm gonna have that meeting tomorrow, and I'm going to. 1 second, guys. Sorry.
No worries.
And I think that's probably my I don't know. I know you guys have kids, and I know that you guys have projects. I haven't finished my baseboard in 4 years here in my house. We flooded during Harvey, and I haven't finished my house, and then I'm over here giving away stuff for free. I think that's kind of like, you know, that's another story.
This isn't a green screen.
Yeah, trust me. You're not in a different position than anyone, and we've all been there and probably will be in those positions. Yeah. But you know, I think it's going to be the way that you go about it, and you go in there. You know, I keep forgetting the word I'm trying to use, but you know, having some humility. That's the word. Having some humility to admit that, listen, I didn't set this up right. We didn't set the expectations from the beginning, but I do want to make this right, and I do want to finish this project, and I want you guys to trust the process. And
sometimes you just realistically, you have to. Once it's gotten to this point, it's much easier to do this via text message, via email. But I think a lot of that has to subside, and you need to have the in-person meetings with them, because I think you'll get a different person. You have the customer who an email or text message is one way, and you see them in person, and they're wonderful and delightful. But I think that yeah, and like what you have to do is you have to sit down with them, and you have to be completely honest with them and be like, hey, listen. What's gonna make you guys happy? What do you need done for me to get out of here? I want you to be fair with me. I'll be fair with you, and just have that conversation with them. And it's super hard, because at this point you resent them. There's, you know, you poured your heart and soul into this project, and they're picking things apart that you may feel are unjust, but at the same time, like, you have to get out of there, right? So continuing to resent them, even if you just have to fake it and put a smile on your face for however long, you have to ask them what's going to make them happy. And then you have to work towards a mutual agreement as far as what you can deliver, you know, what that punch list is. And if you at some point be like, hey, listen, you know what? I don't love this paint job, but how about within the next year, when I get myself back on my feet, we come back and we repaint it for you? And like, have it in writing, whatever you have to do, so that a lot of times these customers are afraid that you're going to get done this job. You're going to disappear. You're never going to come back. They're going to have no warranty. There's going to be issues. So they're trying to get everything grouped into this punch list, where it's like, hey, listen, I'll come back, you know, like, I'll fix this stuff. And that's all they need to hear right now. They're in panic mode, and their anxiety and their stresses are coming out on you. And it's been a long project, and it's been drawn out, and it probably should have been wrapped up for whatever reasons. But you have to sit down in person with them, and you have to just find out what's going to make them happy, so that you can get to the finish line. You know, there's legal repercussions and all of that stuff. You have a contract. But at the end of the day, it's almost easier, especially at this point with $13,000, to just be like, hey, listen, like, what do I need to do for you guys? And then if you can't do it all right now, be honest with them and be like, listen, I just can't right now, and get it in writing that when you will, and then hold yourself to that and be accountable to that. And if they don't understand that, then at that point, that's on them, and kind of cross that bridge when you come to it. But I think you also want to leave that job feeling good about it yourself. And like, this is tainting that right now for you. And what potentially could have been something you're super proud of isn't right now because of all this crap that's going on. So you got to get yourself to like a healthy headspace with this project that you can put it behind you and move on to your next one and learn from these mistakes, because it's going to get to a point where there's nothing else you can do. And to sit here and dwell on this and panic about this and beat yourself up over this, you just got to like take it on the chin, do what you have to do, and then put all of your good mental headspace towards what's in front of you rather than like what's behind you at this point, because it's no good for anyone.
Yeah, that actually happened. I told John that, I actually stopped posting for, a good month because, I told them that I needed some time because my schedule had already been, booked. And I just stopped posting because, you feel down. Posting's hard enough to begin with, to post something relevant. And, I just stopped posting. You kind of feel down, and then you get back and, and not to beat a dead horse, but, I have sat down with them. We use a program called Basecamp. We go back and forth. I've sat down with them many, many times. So just sitting down with them again, it just seems like just repetitive. And now that they're saying I'm just making excuses, and it's not that. I'm thinking about, just walking away again, being proud about the job. And I just feel like, I just have this feeling that it's just not going to happen. And
I mean, ask them, be like, listen, at this point, is the 13 grand going to like you not getting that money? Is that going to be a major issue for you?
No, I if I could walk away and not get paid anything,
then ask them, be like, listen, like it's not working out right now. If you keep the rest of this payment, get somebody else to fix whatever your issues are you fine to part ways, and get them to sign a release.
Right.
And like, give them that option. Not that that's what you want to do, but if you've been through this dance before and you don't see any end in sight and you think they're just making you jump through hoops, see if they're like, if that's what, when you ask them, hey, what's going to make you happy? Is me fixing this going to make you happy, or is me walking out and leaving you with the remainder of the contract going to make you happy? Like, what's the best thing for you? And if they do that, then just make them sign a release that at that point, you're kind of, it's a clean slate and they're keeping the remainder of the money and you're not responsible for completing the job or the punch list at that point. Mm-hmm. If that's what they want, and you don't see anything else changing, like, and that's what you got to do, then do that.
It's, I guess this whole time I was thinking that it was really important to get that final payment. And that's where a lot of my, my thoughts were coming. And, I still believe that that having that conversation is important, and but knowing that the opportunity to kind of walk away would be okay for you, mm-hmm. then yeah, I would second what Tyler said and say, listen, again, walk through. I want to get on the same page. This isn't going well. Just have the humility going into it. And then give them the option. Like, I'd like to make this right. I really want. I'm proud of the work I've put into this. I want this to be good for you guys. Do I have the opportunity to come to a mutual agreed punch list so we can complete and get paid, or do you prefer that we just part ways because this obviously isn't working? And put the ball in their court and see what they come back at, and them saying that you're making excuses. Then that you're not going there to be defensive. You're not going there to explain anything. You're going there to ask a question and then just listen.
Yeah, you can't kill yourself for them. Also, at the end of the day, if you, in your heart of hearts, feel like you've done everything within your power and they're being unreasonable, then ask them if that works for them. If that works for them, and you can kind of wipe your hands clean and like learn from this more than anything else, then that might just be what you have to do. And there's no shame in that at the end of the day. I think that you just have to take those lessons with you, and not be so charitable, and then cover your ass.
Yeah, for sure. I learned a lot.
Yeah. But I mean, that's just part of it. But I think see what they want, because sometimes people like this, they want the final say, they want the final word, they want to feel like they're winning.
Yeah.
So if it takes you bowing out and a little bit of financial hit for them to win, then maybe that might be your best bet.
Mhm.
If not, blue tape their mouth shut. You could do that, and then tell them you know where they live and you have a key to their house. Usually that helps.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate just taking your time out, and you guys again. I told Johnny this, and I'll tell you guys. I wrote it in my review, but you guys have been a true inspiration, to me, my family. My wife works with me; she does our project management. My son actually, he opted out. It was a very difficult decision, but he opted out to not go to college. He got accepted to Texas A&M, Texas, Florida State. And, he said, well, what do you want to do? And you want to be a doctor? You want to be a lawyer? You want to be an engineer? He said, no. That's him right there. He's over there.
How's it going, guys?
Hey,
And
Really nice to meet you.
yeah.
it's
And
kind of like my brother.
No, Tyler, actually, you and I are a lot alike. I see.
Uh-oh. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, to start off, we drive the same truck. We have a lot of the same tools. And, I've been doing this for a couple of years now. And we've improved our process a lot and just learning a lot.
Awesome.
Listen, if you want to come run my company, I'll give you all the shirts. You can run it. Just tell me what you want to make. You can pretend to be Tyler.
All right.
I always tell him, I said, what if John, Tyler, or Nick was here, would they approve of your work? I'm like, do it like if they're watching.
Yeah,
and they're like, he's like, okay, and he'll redo it, but he'll
redo it.
Yeah. I asked him, I said, what are you gonna do after you graduate? He's like, well, come work for the family. I'm like, well, I don't need you with a business administration degree. I'm like, you could start now. So we made a very difficult decision. It was controversial from our family and friends, but now we just purchased a CNC machine. He's running the CNC machine. He does all of our renderings. He runs the shop production and the crews. So, we listen to you guys every Sunday. I get the notification pops up, and you guys, about a year or two ago, maybe, I considered myself, lucky to be a business owner, but not very proud, I guess, to say, to do what I did. I never thought that this is what I would do for a living. And after listening to you guys and after seeing your work, it completely just reversed my mentality, and I think it's not only changed me as a person, but my outlook in life, my outlook in business, and I just really thank you guys for doing what you guys do and just shedding some light on people like us.
That's awesome, man. Well, thanks for following along. I feel like my biggest advice to you, which is something I've been trying to focus on, and it sounds you're in a position that I feel like I could very easily be in, is to work really hard to find customers who appreciate what you do and not necessarily pay you the most. Maybe those jobs don't seem to be as lucrative, but I think that for the reasons that you're doing things, obviously there's a financial factor there, but I think that you're going to be a happier person finding customers who appreciate what you do, sometimes even more so than paying you.
Yeah. Just having value in the things that you do, it's important.
Yeah. It's like self-worth and everything else. I think that doing that's going to bring out the best in you. It's going to bring out your best work, and I think you'll continue to grow and eventually be in that customer base where you now have the jobs that you want and the customers that you want, which is kind of what we're all striving for. Except for Nick. Nick wants a mega yacht.
Yeah. And it's funny because I have my days. I'm like, all right, today's my Tyler day. And then, when I'm just not upset, but just just looking at things, I'm like, all right, this is what John, this is from his set of lenses, like the guy that you hired that was sitting in a closet, you know, the apprentice, and you just ask him to watch the stairs getting built, and you turn around.
He had a headlamp on. Let's not forget that.
Yeah. and then, you know, of course, like Nick with your spiral staircase, I'm like, you know, I don't even know if I would ever, you know, approach something like that. And then I turn around and I'm getting a CNC machine and, you know, doing, you know, trying to copy things here and there. But, you know, it's nice. You guys are, you know, what I would consider like, you know, what every high schooler, you know, football player wants to get to the NFL. You know, that I see you guys and the way you guys approach, you know, business, and I see your work, and it's so detailed and meticulous, and the way you articulate yourself on the podcast as well. It's everything that, you know, at least that me in my position with the struggles to get to where I am, it's nice to know that, you know,
That there's other people dealing with the exact same problem.
Yeah, don't lose sight of that. Like, you know, we're all dealing with it, and, you know, like even the spiral staircase you're talking about, it's like that's been a huge pain, and I don't even know how we approached it. We just did. We were inspired to just challenge ourselves, and it sounds like that's what you're doing. And
hey, this is all your fault.
that's fine. I'll take we'll take responsibility for it. But at the end of the day, it's like this. You're gonna look back at this and be like, man, you know what? Like, this was worth it. Whether you walk away or whether you respray the whole kitchen, whatever you do to walk away, and you're gonna look back at this at one point and be like, that was worth it. Like, that was the right decision. And it allowed us to then refocus and then go into another challenging project to push ourselves again to that next level. You know,
I was just having the conversation with my daughter, and she's young, and she didn't understand why, like, winning all the time isn't the best thing. And I'm explaining to her, you know, you look at anybody and their losses oftentimes are what define them. And those struggles are what really shape you and mold you to who you are, who your business is, and get you closer to your long-term goals, or put you on the correct trajectory to where you want to be. And it's sometimes we complicate things so much, and we get so down on jobs like this or customers like this, where maybe this is a critical, pivotal point for you, where you're like, hey, we're going to change our business because of this, or we're going to veer off in this direction, where this job right now, which may seem like the biggest headache in the world, could prove to be one of the greatest advantages that your business has, because you're like, I want as far away from that as possible. But while you're in it, it's a shit show, and it's really hard to kind of get your head out and see what's really going on. But next year you'll look back at this and be like, we're in a better place. The year after that, you're in a better place. You just got to kind of keep trudging through at this point. But these are the type of the things that in business really push you ahead. Knocking this job out of the park, although it may feel great, isn't really going to make you that much better of a business owner, a human being, a father. The struggles are what going to make you a more well-rounded individual and kind of shoot you on the path where you need to be. So it's tough while you're in it, but just know that moving forward, it's definitely going to be a good thing that ended up happening to you.
Yeah, I agree.
I think one of the things I said to my guys today at a meeting was, because some of them are younger and they're dealing with clients, and like they'd like to complain about the client. And I told all of them, I go, every client's crazy. They're all going to be difficult. And the one that you find that's perfect is the exception.
Yeah.
So going at this, and we talked about earlier, is like finding that solitaire card that was put in wrong, and then knowing that going to the next project and not going, oh, this one's better. They just feel better. No, it's still trying to find out where that card was placed wrong. That 2 months in or 4 months in, you could still place that same card incorrectly and get the same outcome with that new client. And that you can't just try and discard this, Control Alt Delete, and be like, this was that one-off situation. That this is going to be as you get that caliber up in the industry and in the projects, you're going to find that these people exist more, and you need to perfect it. How are you going to, not every single approach is going to be the same for each client. That you're going to have to change it. You're going to have to manipulate it. You're going to have to, bow down at some points, and other times be the one that needs to be the aggressive one that dictates the situation, because that's what that client calls for. So I think, this will live with you for a while, regardless if you, cut and leave or repaint it or whatever. And by all means, it should. This could be a critical point for you, that if you keep handling this wrong, guess what? It's not all the clients.
Right now.
Yeah. You just can't hang your head on something like this for too long either. It's one of those things that can bog you down in life, and it sounds like you take work pretty personally. So you don't want to live with that all the time. You don't want your kids, your wife to bring that home. At some point, you got to get past that and move on, so that you can kind of give your 110% and make sure that the world's getting the best version of you, because sometimes people bring out the worst in you, and you don't want to live with that for too long.
Yeah. Nope.
Crap happens. We all make mistakes. We screw stuff up. We don't do our best work. It's just how you gonna make better in the future.
We're human. It's called character.
Yeah. It's called character. Tell them it was rustic paint job. Who cares?
Character grade.
Yes.
It's rustic kitchen.
Dude, thanks for jumping on real quick. I know it was just off
man.
the cuff.
Like I said, what I saw Newton, I'm like, either this is a bill collector or this is Johnny calling me, because you're the only person that I know from Newton. I'm like, oh man. So when I heard your voice, I'm like, that's just awesome that you took your time to reach out. That like, you guys are up here, but that you guys took your time to call me and to do this. I mean, that is just incredible, and I really, really appreciate it.
Really thank John, because Nick and I had no idea.
Who's Frank?
I thought it was a great combo.
Frank's butting in.
I thought it was a great conversation that, we often miss this situation. We're always talking high level, all this cool stuff that's happening. And the reality of it is that, we all talk after this podcast about what's happening real time. And that was what we used to record. And I think that conversation, and, I may have given my opinion. I knew it needed more. And I think your situation with Nick and Tyler's advice, it's going to steer you in it's going to give you a lot more ammo going into that conversation. I don't know if I would have taken today off, in my opinion. I probably would have attacked it and set up a meeting for today. And that day of silence could set you up for a punch in the face tomorrow. Yeah. But I think I wanted you to hear everyone's perspective. And that's why I texted the boys and said, hey, real quick combo, 10 minutes,
Yeah, no, well, I appreciate it, and it is important, because I know where you guys come from. Just listening to you and your background stories and everything. So I'm taking that into account as well, like the kind of projects that you guys do, how your business models and everything, and your advice. So we have a lot to talk about. We are going to go back. I've never abandoned a job before. I'm going to try to take control of it and just see how they react, and then kind of take it from there.
And don't give too much stuff away for free.
Yeah, and that, I think I gave them
your son told you he wasn't going to college, and you're like, it's their money. We can start giving away stuff for free on the jobs. White oak on every job. No kicks.
I gave him the Modern Craftsman experience. I'm like, oh, I just threw up on them, and then
buy the paint sprayer. I don't care. No college.
Yeah, man. Well, thank
Frank,
you guys again. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was nice meeting you
Good luck
guys.
with everything.
Yeah.
Keep us in the loop.
I sure will. Appreciate it, guys.
See you.
Okay, brother.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, well, that was another one of John's random people butting into our Zoom calls, which we always appreciate. John, thank you so much.
Because you hated it. Come on.
No, I didn't hate it. I'm always like, man, I'm actually getting Zoom bombed. Nope, John planned this, and he just
cool.
John just didn't let us know.
At one point, I was like, I love the fact that you two were getting into a podcast. Like,
I was like, no, Tyler, and I saw you go for your phone, like, oh my god, I love that they're arguing.
No, I just love that you guys are heated up about something that, like,
It's
It was cool.
good. Yeah,
I
it was
loved
good. It's good.
I loved it.
Let's talk sustainability. How about a product that uses waste from coal production and turns it into siding and moldings that meet the tough standards of historical architectural review boards? And because it's so durable, you won't have to be worrying about replacing it. Do the right thing for the environment, your client, and your reputation. To learn more about Duration Polyash products, please visit their website at durationmillwork.com.